So for the past few months, we've been covering StreetEasy and sort of the evolution of the brand. They've taken more and more initiatives that are essentially creating revenue for the firm in a big way. And suddenly in the last week, we've seen two major shifts. Let's talk a little bit about them. Initially, Premier Agent came along, and this was a program that let agents advertise on other people's listings. There was a big hoopla about it. The brokerages slammed them. But last week, something changed. So can you talk about that?
Last week, StreetEasy announced that it made a deal with 4 major firms. Corcoran, Douglas Elliman, Nest Seekers, and Bond decided to buy into a different program called Premier Broker, which is basically the same. It lets them buy buyer leads
It's
in
just
bulk.
at the corporate level, it's the same sort of program, right?
Exactly. So now they are paying to advertise on listings, and they'll be fed buyer leads, and then from there they can decide which agent to distribute the leads to.
So essentially, we had individual agents buying in, and suddenly we're buying in at a corporate level, which means that StreetEasy not only has the platform and the users from the consumer side, the buyers and renters, they now also have the corporate buy-in. So doesn't that make them probably the most powerful force in the New York residential market at the moment?
Absolutely, and people were saying that if Corcoran and Elliman and some of the big firms were to buy into this, that the whole industry would really lose its leverage as far as, having a leg to stand on in the argument with StreetEasy. And the decision also puts some of the larger firms in the lead generation business for the first time, which is a business they said they probably wouldn't go into. So they're bringing in leads en masse, they're farming them out to agents, and really sort of becoming a clearinghouse for leads to some extent.
And one of the arguments they used to keep making was quality, right? You're going to lose quality, you're going to lose knowledge, you're going to lose a connection to agents who know the area, who know what properties should sell for, who are actually invested in the New York market, as opposed to being from wherever. How's this, are they just doing a complete somersault and going the other way? I just don't get what the change of heart's about.
Well, I think there was a fear that if they didn't do it, the other firms would do it, and they'd lose a competitive advantage. I think a lot of them did it to defend their market share rather than, because they really wanted to or because they thought it was the ethical or the right thing to do.
But what's the danger then for these firms? Like, what could StreetEasy do to essentially cut them out?
Well, I think that the fear is that StreetEasy will continue to squeeze them for every dollar and cent that's possible on every transaction, every piece of the transaction that StreetEasy comes into contact with, whether it's a rental deal, a sales deal, a landlord advertising, a developer. There are all these different add-ons, and I think the fear is that StreetEasy will kind of take every opportunity to make money. But remember, StreetEasy is part of Zillow. They are a public company. That's what they do. They are, there to make money. So no one should really be surprised.
Since the acquisition, they've really ramped up how they're making money, whether it's the neighborhood program or the building specialist program, or then Premier Agent, Premier Broker, and then maybe just half an hour ago or an hour ago, you guys broke some other big news, which is
that they're rolling out a new charge for rental agents to put their listings on StreetEasy.
All rental agents?
Yeah, so they're saying that if you want to upload a rental listing onto the StreetEasy platform, you will have to pay $3 a day for each listing.
$3 a day?
Which doesn't seem like a lot on
That's
the
a
surface
lot of money.
It's the price of a coffee or less. But when you add it up over the lifespan of a rental listing and, you multiply that number by 365 days a year, that could constitute tens of millions of dollars in new revenue for StreetEasy, which is what they've been gunning for.
And they don't seem to be afraid that putting this charge in will just see a lot of people retreat from the program and pull their listings. That doesn't seem to be a concern at this point.
I don't think they're too concerned. I think one concern they do have is the quality of their data. Right now, agents can feed their own exclusives to them, but they also aggregate listings from other agents. So let's say Kathy has a listing and I know about it. I could submit information and it might not be clean. So let's say I want my listings on StreetEasy. Let's say I might have had 5 before. Maybe now I just pay for 1. If they're all 5 1-bedrooms in the same building, maybe the quality is a little bit better.
But now putting everything into this one unified platform is probably going to address that issue, right? Like they're trying to take care of that. Brokerages moved too slow. They did not see this coming, and then they thought it was going to go away, and then they thought it might not be a big threat. Is there anything they can do now to reverse to stem the tide of StreetEasy sort of conquering the market in the way that they're doing?
I think they've sort of figured out that the only route for them is to work with StreetEasy, because the only alternative avenue that was left to them was to create their own MLS system.
Which they've been talking about for a bit.
Which they've been talking about for a very long time. And, you know, there's this sense in the market that they can't all come together and work together because there's so much mistrust and so much lack of communication that they just can't make it work as a team. So they'll just have to work independently with StreetEasy and try to get the best deal that they can for each individual.
But now you've got like a barbarian at the gates. Isn't that going to make them maybe come together and say, okay, this is time. In 6 months, we need to have an MLS. Like, this is serious now.
I mean,
right?
You would think so, but at the same time, the StreetEasy Premier Agent program launched a couple months ago, and everyone was up in arms about it. But from what we've heard from sources, there's been no concerted effort between the firms to actually come up with an alternative. You know, there are no meetings behind closed doors to figure out how to make an MLS work.
And in fact, in the Hamptons, there was an effort to put together some kind of MLS for that market. And it had been going on for years. And just a month or two ago, they scrapped the plans for this MLS because StreetEasy bought a local listings website in the Hamptons and took that market. And the firms just said, that's it, we're done. The one interesting thing I would just add about the firms is that by participating in Premier Broker, it's really shifted the balance of power back to the firms. And one interesting thing is that, you know, first you had Premier Agent where agents could advertise. And so arguably that's a great opportunity for a buy-side agent who wants leads. Well, now you have the firms getting in on the action. And so from the firm's perspective, you know, maybe their top agents don't need, you know, just the one-off leads coming in. So maybe they're trying to help their less experienced or, you know,
sort of
whatever,
the middle tier agents,
the middle
as well,
tier
right?
buy-side agents. But what it's done by participating in Premier Broker, the firms are actually now competing with the agents who might have been advertising. And that's one thing that strikes me. I wonder how this will all play out. I mean, how will the firms kind of feed the listings to agents? Who will get the listings? What kind of competition will there be? Will agents now not participate in Premier Agent because their firm is participating in Premier Broker?
So there's a risk of cannibalizing the other product by doing that.
There wasn't also a sense from individual brokers when the program first launched that it didn't work so well if you were just one person investing in Premier Agent. That really the firms that were benefiting were the companies that were doing it en masse, like the LG Fairmonts and the Triple Mints and the people who made this their business, the business of lead generation. So maybe now that we see the companies going in on the corporate level, it will be more effective and it will actually make it more difficult for those lead gen firms.
So the big firms are essentially seeing these people as, do you think they're worried about firms like this using this model?
Well, I
do you
think a
they're
lot
trying
of
to
people
emulate?
had never heard of companies like LG Fairmont, and suddenly, you know, they have a $15 million listing and the broker showing up with a client is an LG Fairmont broker who got the lead for the client off of StreetEasy. I mean, it was suddenly evening the playing field in a way that the big companies weren't comfortable with.
Okay, but now with the big companies have the big budget, so someone like an Element might be able to spend $500,000 on buying these leads. Is that sort of a way to balance the scale or bring it back to them? Balance the scale is not the right word because they've had the power historically.
Yeah, I think it is, but it comes at that cost.
Yeah.
So you have to decide if it's worth it.
I kind of see it as a why not perspective. I don't think that the Elements and Corcorans of the world were worried that suddenly a smaller lead gen firm was gonna put them out of business. But if you have that budget and you decide that it's worth it from an ROI perspective, why not invest some dollars in leads and just capture that back?
The why not is because you're empowering this platform that is getting more and more powerful, right? So we talk about this all the time. Facebook, with the news media, Facebook is now way more powerful than any single media company. There might be a day that happens with StreetEasy if it hasn't happened already.
Absolutely.